What if I told you that the most dangerous player in the entire 2026 Six Nations has only just turned 21? That opposition captains are building their entire defensive game plan around stopping one man before the match even kicks off. That a Bordeaux prop grabbed him by the throat after a Champions Cup final and he just smiled. That England have been trying to produce a player like this since 2003, and they finally have one. His name is Henry Pollock. He wasn't even playing rugby seriously 4 years ago. Now he's been on a British and Irish Lions tour. He's broken a Six Nations record that stood for over a century. And Steve Borthwick is calling him a superstar in public press conferences while he's still studying for his university degree. But here's what nobody is talking about: the discipline issues that could derail everything, the Scotland question that almost changed the entire story, and the one thing that happened in his career before any of this that most people have completely missed. We're getting into all of it. Stay with us. Henry Pollock was born on the 14th of January 2005 in Banbury, Oxfordshire. He grew up in a sporting family. His mother Hester was a national level triathlete. His sister Zoe went on to become a competitive 400-metre hurdler at the University of Georgia in the United States, and his brother Angus plays golf to a high level. Both his parents were born in Scotland, which is a detail that becomes relevant later, because it means Pollock could have represented Scotland had he chosen to. Gregor Townsend reportedly knew exactly who he was. Before rugby took over, Pollock swam competitively and did triathlons. You can see that athletic base in him now. His endurance across 80 minutes, the way he keeps producing at the breakdown in the final quarter when other players are starting to slow down. He didn't specialise in rugby until his early teens, but once he did, the progression was rapid. He attended Beechborough Prep School in Buckinghamshire and then Stowe School. He joined the Northampton Saints Academy at under 13 level. And it was during his school years that a coach made the decision that shaped everything that followed. Pollock had been playing scrum half. His coach looked at him, already physically dominant, already loud, already making himself the centre of everything, and reportedly told him, "You've got a big mouth, we'll put you at 7. He moved to open side flanker. The rest, as they say, is history. His early heroes at that position were Michael Hooper and Richie McCaw, which tells you the kind of player he was trying to be. Breakdown specialists, relentless workers, players who were in every single contest. Pollock made his senior Northampton Saints debut in September 2022 against London Irish in a Premiership Rugby Cup fixture. He was 17 years old. 2 more appearances followed that season. Then in November 2023, he made his full Premiership debut against Leicester Tigers, the East Midlands derby, one of the biggest club fixtures in English rugby. He played 30 minutes. He looked like he belonged completely. He signed his first professional contract with Saints in spring 2023. He signed a multi-year extension in December 2024, which tells you everything about how much Northampton wanted to keep him. Rival clubs were reportedly interested, and Saints weren't letting him go anywhere. The 2024-25 season was when England and the rest of Europe really started to understand what they were dealing with. Pollock made 22 appearances for Northampton, scored 10 tries, and won 3 end-of-season awards: Breakthrough Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season, and Try of the Season. The Try of the Season award was for a solo effort against Sale Sharks in March 2025, his first Premiership try. He shook off 2 tackles, chipped over the top, chased his own kick, and collected it under the posts. It was the kind of try that a wing or a centre scores occasionally, when everything goes right. He did it as a back row forward because he decided he was going to. In the Champions Cup that same season, he scored 7 tries in 7 games, which was the most of any forward in the entire competition. 7 tries in 7 European games as a flanker. He was nominated for Champions Cup Player of the Year, which for a player who had only broken into the first team properly, that season was extraordinary. Northampton reached the final, where they faced Bordeaux Bagel at Twickenham. They lost 28-20, and after the final whistle, there was an incident that told you everything about how opponents already felt about Pollock. He tried to separate his captain Fraser Dingwall from Bordeaux fly half Mathieu Jalibert during an altercation, and Bordeaux prop Jefferson Poirot grabbed Pollock by the throat before the two were separated. He'd already become someone opposition players specifically wanted to get at. at 20 years old in his first full professional season. It's worth slowing down here and being specific about what makes Pollock unusual, because the highlights reel can make it look like he's just fast and energetic, and it's actually more than that. He is 6'2" and 100 kilograms, which is the ideal build for a modern international back row forward. Big enough to carry hard, light enough to move at pace, for a full 80 minutes. According to Ruck magazine, he can squat 230 kilograms for 3 repetitions and bench press 140 kilograms for 2. He hits 10 meters per second at full sprint, which is 36 kilometers per hour. That's the kind of speed that belongs on a wing, not at number 7 or 8. The physical profile alone puts him in rare company. But the thing that coaches talk about most isn't the speed or the strength. It's the breakdown work. His role models were McCaw and Hooper, precisely because those players won games at the breakdown rather than just in the open field. Pollock has that same instinct. He reads where the ball's going to be, he gets there before the defence is set, and he either steals possession or forces a penalty. That's a skill that takes most players years to develop at international level. He's been doing it in the Champions Cup as a teenager. Steve Borthwick said ahead of Pollock's first test start against Ireland this month. He seems to thrive on that, doesn't he? It seems to just keep fueling more of the energy that is within him. I find it incredible watching him. There are not many players like him. We want superstars in the game. And Ireland captain Caelan Doris, himself one of the best number 8s in the world, was asked specifically how to stop Pollock. Doris said, "Cutting out time and space as much as possible. He's got the ability to make something happen from not a whole lot, so we're going to need to pressure him." When opposition captains are planning their whole defensive strategy around a specific player before a match, that tells you something. The under-20s chapter in Pollock's story is worth covering in detail because it's where he first started doing things that nobody in his age group could match, and where England first understood what they had. He captained the England under-18s. In February 2024, he scored a hat-trick on his under-20s debut against Italy. He was then named Player of the Match 3 separate times as England won the 2024 Six Nations Under-20s Championship title. 3 Player of the Match awards in a single tournament is a remarkable return for any player, let alone one making their age-grade debut. England then won the 2024 World Rugby Under-20s Championship in South Africa that summer. Pollock was named Player of the Tournament for the entire World Championship. Not Best Forward, not a nomination, Player of the Tournament for the whole competition. By the time he turned up for pre-season at Northampton, ahead of the 2024-25 club campaign, he had a World Championship medal and a Player of the Tournament award in his pocket. He was 19. It's the kind of early career trajectory that makes talent scouts nervous because the risk when a player peaks at under-20 level is that the step up to senior rugby exposes them. Pollock went the other direction. The 2024-25 club season was better than anything he'd done at age grade, and then came the senior international call. In January 2025, England suffered an injury to number 8 Alex Dombrandt ahead of the Six Nations. Borthwick called Pollock into the senior squad. He was 20 years old and hadn't started a Premiership game yet in that position. He sat on the bench for the first 4 rounds of that Six Nations without getting on the field, and then in the final round against Wales in Cardiff, a match England had already won, Borthwick sent him on in the second half. Pollock scored in the 55th minute and again in the 67th. England won 68-14, which was a record-winning margin in the history of the Wales versus England fixture. Pollock became the youngest English try scorer in Six Nations history, breaking a record that had stood since Henry Laird scored for England in the 1920s. In 30 minutes of rugby on his debut, he broke a century-old record. 6 weeks later, Andy Farrell named the British and Irish Lions squad for the 2025 tour of Australia. Pollock was in it. He was 20 years old and the youngest player selected, ahead of established internationals from all 4 home nations. The Lions selection, which is voted on by coaches who have spent months watching every candidate, said clearly that the people who know rugby best already regarded Pollock as one of the best back row forwards in the British Isles. He played 5 matches on the Lions tour without making a test appearance, which given his age and experience was entirely expected. He scored against the AUNZ Invitational 15 and by all accounts impressed in training and in the tour games. Being in that environment at 20, training with the best players from England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, learning how those players prepare and think. That experience is impossible to put a value on. He came back from Australia a different player. England came into the 2026 Six Nations as one of the pre-tournament favourites. They had Maro Itoje, who was about to win his 100th cap. They had Henry Arundel and Tommy Freeman on the wings. They had George Ford at 10. The expectation was that England would be competing with France for the title on the final weekend. Round 1, they lost to Scotland at Murrayfield 31-20. It was a poor performance. 78% tackle rate compared to Scotland's 88%. 8 turnovers conceded at the breakdown, outscored 4 tries to 2. Pollock didn't start. He came off the bench. Borthwick had kept him in his impact role for the first 2 rounds of the tournament, and the England camp took a lot of criticism for it, because the obvious question was, if you have the most exciting young back row forward in England since Lawrence Dallaglio, why is he on the bench? Round 3 against Ireland at Twickenham on the 21st of February 2026, Borthwick finally gave Pollock his first test start at number 8. England needed a response. Ireland had beaten France in 2025 and were building again under Farrell. The Twickenham crowd was fully behind Pollock from the first whistle. What followed was a tough afternoon that showed exactly where Pollock is in his development, which is brilliant but not yet complete. In the first half, he won a turnover just inside the Ireland half and sent George Ford away with Henry Arundel in support. He delivered a beautiful offload in the build-up to Ollie Lawrence's second half try. He carried hard and repeatedly. The promise was absolutely there. But in the 42nd minute, he was sin-binned for a cynical play at the ball on England's try line. Ireland scored while he was off the field through Dan Sheehan. And the game effectively ended as a contest. England lost 42-21. The post-match criticism was pointed. Former England fly-half Paul Grayson said on BBC 5 Live, "England looked genuinely lost." Stuart Barnes wrote that Pollock didn't even irritate Ireland on the day. That assessment is probably harsh given the context. England's whole system broke down against Ireland, not just Pollock, but the sin bin was a reminder that the discipline side of his game is still a work in progress. He does things at the breakdown that referees at Premiership level let go because of the speed of the game, and at international level, those same actions get yellow cards. It's the adjustment every young back row forward has to make, and most of them take 2 or 3 seasons to get it right. McCaw himself got cited multiple times early in his career. The question isn't whether Pollock will solve it, it's how quickly. England have 2 games left in this Six Nations. Italy away in Rome after the fallow week, and then Scotland at Twickenham on the final weekend. The title is gone. France are 3 from 3 and chasing the Grand Slam. But for Pollock personally, the next 2 games are an opportunity to show that the Ireland performance was a one-off rather than a ceiling. The longer story is much more interesting. Pollock turns 22 in January 2027. The next Rugby World Cup is in Australia in 2027. That tournament is 18 months away. If Pollock develops at the rate he has been developing, and there's no reason to think he won't, he will walk into that World Cup squad as one of England's most important players. He's already good enough to start at number 8 for England. By 2027, he could be the best back row forward in the Northern Hemisphere. There's also the Scotland question that never entirely goes away. Both his parents are Scottish, which means he was eligible for Scotland when Gregor Townsend was watching him play. Townsend would have known exactly who Pollock was when he captained England under-18s and then destroyed teams at under-20 level. The fact that England moved quickly to cap him at senior level in March 2025 ended that conversation permanently. Once you play a senior test for one nation, you're committed. But it's worth noting that Scotland came very close to having a player who is now one of the most talked about young rugby players in the world. He's studying for a sports management degree part-time at Loughborough University. He describes himself as a content creator on his Instagram. He has a mop of hair that goes in every direction when he runs and a celebration style that has already made him a fan favourite. For a sport that has spent a decade worrying about its appeal to younger audiences, Pollock is exactly the kind of personality the game needs on the bigger stages. Scored 2 tries on his senior England debut, youngest Six Nations try scorer in English rugby history. 7 Champions Cup tries in 7 games. British and Irish Lions tourist at 20. First test start against Ireland this month, already being planned around by opposition captains before the match even starts. England haven't had a back row forward who genuinely excites people since the days of Delalio and Richard Hill in the early 2000s. Pollock has a long way to go to reach those heights, and the Ireland sin bin is a reminder that there's still work to do. But the raw material is there in a way it hasn't been for 20 years. That's why the title of this video is exactly what it is. The question for the comments: is Henry Pollock already the most exciting young player in the entire Six Nations right now? Or is there someone else you'd put above him? Let us know below, and if you want to keep up with everything happening in this tournament, as it heads into the final 2 rounds, make sure you're subscribed. We've got a lot more coming.